Welcome to the show. My name is Megan Nilsson, aka Crypto Megan, and I'm back, baby. I have been missing you guys so much, and I'm finally home back in Spain. I've traveled all over this past month, from Miami to Art Basel to Tulum, Mexico, working with a travel company that I can't wait to tell you about. And from there to LA, San Diego, and Las Vegas. I'm now back in my studio. So happy to be back. And by the way, as promised, I will be doing a toast to you guys today because Bitcoin hit that $45,000 mark, and I promised you guys I would have a glass of champagne if it happened. So here's to you. Cheers. I am so excited for what's to come. And on this episode, I'll be going over what's on everybody's mind. The imminent ETF, Bitcoin ETF approval, set to be approved tomorrow. And in this episode, I'll be going over some charts about where Bitcoin could go when it's approved, what kind of price targets it could hit, what experts are saying, and also what Tim Draper said in my podcast with him that I dropped last week on his predictions for the Bitcoin ETF approval. What will happen if it's approved? What will happen if it's not approved? We're going to go over all of that in this episode. So stay tuned to the very end because this is full of gems and I cannot wait. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So like I said in the intro, I've been saving this bottle that I got a couple of years ago on a plane for my birthday to pop open for a special occasion. And what better occasion than to pop it open today with you guys? You are here for it. I am honored and privileged to be in this movement with you. And today is a monumental day as we are hours away, less than 24 hours away from a possible Bitcoin ETF approval that is huge for the space. So I'm going to let you in on everything I think that could be happening if it is approved, if it's not approved, and how you can play this to win. So stay tuned because this is going to be a jam-packed episode. And cheers to you if you are excited as I am for what's about to come. And I'm just honored. I'm honored to be here with you guys today. Now for the Bitcoin halving countdown, I will be doing my daily videos up to the Bitcoin halving again now that I'm back at my studio. And just in 15,000 blocks remain until the Bitcoin halving. I will be back to doing my daily videos for you guys now that I'm back at my studio, have fast internet. I can't wait. And we are about 99 days out. So it's set to happen on April 19th, 2024. And so just why is this so monumental? Before we get into the Bitcoin ETF talk, let's talk about the halving itself. I mean, this is an absolute bomb, ready to just a ticking time bomb, ready to explode. I mean, what the Bitcoin halving essentially is the Bitcoin supply increase cut in half, coupled with a massive demand coming into the market from the new ETF approval and also just the regular Bitcoin cycles. I mean, that is a recipe for the classic supply and demand shock. And having all this happen at the same time is monumental for Bitcoin. It's such an exciting time. And I'm so happy I got back just in time for this. And it's also a special day because exactly 15 years ago, the first Bitcoin software was officially released, giving the world the gift of inflation-resistant sound money. So Bitcoin was launched on January 9th, 2009. Officially, the first block was mined. And they gave us this gift, for me, the gift that gave me purpose in life. So it's a very special day indeed. And here we have from Lark Davis, the Bitcoin ETF is a once in a market, once in a lifetime liquidity event. There will never again be anything quite like this happen. You are here at a special time. Indeed, my friends, we are here at a very special time. And now I'm going to go over just exactly how I'm going to play this to win, because a lot of you will be sucked into the noise, or you just kind of don't know what to do. Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I wait? And I'm going to let you know exactly what I'm doing and how I'm going to play this so that you have the biggest chance to succeed and give you the tools you need to understand what may happen based on previous cycles, charts, and also market psychology. So first up, I'm going to let you in on a little bit of my podcast with Tim Draper on what he believes is going to happen in the evolution of the Bitcoin price and how it's going to pan out. And just as an FYI, this podcast was dropped last week. I'm doing a massive giveaway. If you like to travel, I'm giving away a cruise certificate plus a 2-night, 3-day stay at major destinations around the world. In collaboration with Vacabee, a digital travel membership club. So if you want to get entered to sign into that, just check out this podcast. I'll drop the link here. You fill out the form and comment where you want to travel to this year. So let's hear from Tim what his thoughts are on the up-and-coming Bitcoin ETF and the price of Bitcoin.
Do you think it's coming now, or this is what's on everyone's mind? So Bloomberg just came out with this big report to finish off with the bang. You know, they say Bitcoin to 500,000. It's just so funny. Like, it's just so bearish, and then it's so bullish all of a sudden.
Right. They're thinking it's gone,
like it's
and they go silent for a while.
Yeah.
And then, oh, it's gone up. It's doubled. Oh, well, then we must be pointing in that direction.
The typical thing and they're saying now $500,000 Bitcoin, this is the last bull run we'll have for retail. It'll never go back down again. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, is this like the last time people can get Bitcoin at this price and it's never going to go back, or are the normal cycles still taking hold? Because as we go into this new year.
So I think Bitcoin has followed the halvening. Some people call it the halving.
I know, it's a mystery, right? What do you call it?
I've called it the halvening forever. And then other people are saying the halving. But anyway, when Bitcoin splits in half and it's harder to mine.
Right.
On the way toward that moment, Bitcoin rises, and then it stays up for a while, and then it drops. And it keeps an interest in Bitcoin while all these engineers are building it so that we can have that Steve Jobsian moment.
Yes, that's what I
And when we have that moment, all of a sudden people will be just going, then the women are going to use it at retail. And when part of it will be when it hits 250,000 or a million or 1.5 million or 5 million, it's going to be where people are kind of indifferent as to whether they hold or spend. Right now, it's like, I'm not getting rid of mine.
Right, yeah.
I'm not spending mine. I'm not investing mine. I'm holding on while this thing plays out. And, but there will be a moment where I kind of go, well, or people like retailers won't even take dollars anymore. So that'll be a time when I have to use my Bitcoin to buy whatever it is I'm trying to buy.
And then when that moment happens, the theory is that then that's where Bitcoin becomes virtually, infinite. Everywhere. In a sense, and the price follow suit. And in the meantime, we continue to build, we continue to do our thing, although the price doesn't reflect what's being built in the back end by any means, that's what's happening. So I just think like getting positioned now and people just getting aware now is just like you said, you have this vision and you set it and you let it play out.
Yeah, you don't want to be running to the bank to get your dollars and turn them into Bitcoin. You want to have your Bitcoin before that happens.
You want to get positioned.
You want to make sure that you can relax while everybody's panicking.
That's right. And that's what you're going to be doing, clearly. So do you stick by the 250,000 for the end of this year?
Well, here's what I'm thinking. There will be that moment that I'm talking about. Part of it will be Bitcoin increasing in value. Part of it will be the dollar dropping off in value.
Yeah. And that's happening.
So what $250,000 means today and what it'll mean after the bank run are going to be two very different things.
So that's the message. That's the message we stick with. Is that like...
So there you have it, guys. From the Bitcoin billionaire investor himself, Tim Draper, you must watch this podcast. This is just a small tidbit of such an incredible conversation. And let me break it down to you in case you didn't understand fully what Tim is saying, because it's kind of hard to grasp. He is literally saying that 250,000 is just kind of like a watermark, but that is inevitable that Bitcoin will hit 1 million, 1.5 million, and up to 5 million when the bank run happens. And if you listen carefully, he doesn't say if, he says when. And you want to be positioned before people are panicking. So my point here is, Yes, this Bitcoin ETF is monumental. It is allowing massive amount of liquidity to come into the markets like never before, making it easier and easier. But until we have, as Tim puts it, that Steve Jobsian moment where everything is super easy at the click of a button, everything in the ecosystem, we're going to be teetering and we're going to have a lot of volatility. And that's just the name of the game. But that there will come a point where fiat is tanking. It's already starting to go down. And people they must hold Bitcoin. And he even says in this podcast that at some point in the future, it'll be deemed financially irresponsible not to have exposure to Bitcoin in companies and institutions. So he's just basically saying it's not if, but when scenario, and that we shouldn't worry so much about the short term, what happens with the Bitcoin ETF, but rather, when is this moment going to happen, the Steve Jobsian moment, and will you be positioned before then? Food for thought. But now we're going to go a little bit more specific because I know you want exact price points for what's going to happen after this Bitcoin ETF. So let's continue. Before we dive into the rest, I just want to follow up on some of the previous things I said at the beginning of my 200 days to the Bitcoin halving countdown, just to kind of see where we're at now at this inflection point. And, just to show you that that was a good opportunity then, but we still have a good opportunity now. Check it out. A stock that has exposure to crypto, which in this case would be Coinbase or Coin. Now, this marked the top of the last cycle at 65,000 when Coinbase went public, and a lot of people bought the top. So now you have a chance to not buy the top, to talk about it at Thanksgiving Day table and look like a hero once it breaks out, because it is currently in an inverted head and shoulders pattern. And when it breaks out, the measured move is $209. It's currently at $109. So double your money. Of course, nothing goes up in a straight line. So basically, I was telling you then, this was around Thanksgiving time. It was exactly on Thanksgiving, exactly. Coinbase was a good buy. It had inverted head and shoulders. It was at 107 when I talked about it. It is now at 152, about a 68% price increase since I started talking about it. Still got a lot of room to run. So why am I showing you this is basically just for you guys to start thinking, when is the best opportunity? It was then, it was a year before then, and it's now. It's still now. We can still get positioned, and I want you to think about that. I want you to think about positioning yourself for what's to come and not to get so caught up in the noise of the moment. In fact, let's look at ADA. When I started talking about Cardano on my 200-day to Bitcoin halving countdown here on YouTube, it was at 26 cents. How many of you would kill to buy Cardano at 26 cents right now? It's around 52 cents at the time of recording, 53 cents. How many of you would go back to that moment and say, hey, I'd like to buy then? It's more than doubled since then, and it's only been about a month and a half. So what I'm saying is this cycle is playing out, and the only thing that has been kind of like consistent in the history of crypto are the cycles in human emotions. So, now that it's doubled, people are saying, oh, it's a little bit expensive. But if you put it into perspective and you also understand that ADA, Cardano, could hit $6 to $8 to even $10 this cycle, then 53 cents is also a good buy. So let's stop getting caught up in the noise. Let's start positioning, dollar cost averaging, and continuing to do our thing with a long-term perspective. And that is leaning into what I'm about to say now about the Bitcoin ETF. So BlackRock has over $2 billion lined up in week one for their Bitcoin ETF, according to VanEck's Matthew Siegel. So there will be billions of dollars flooding into this market as soon as the ETF is approved, which is massive. And the imminent approval date is tomorrow. We are waiting all on pins and needles for tomorrow, what the SEC is going to announce. And many say that it could start trading as soon as the day after. So it's not going to be one of those scenarios where it's approved, but then it doesn't start trading for a few weeks. It looks like it's going to start trading immediately. And what could this mean for prices? So when the Coinbase stock IPO, when it launched on the market, it ran up about 20% before it corrected and crashed at the top of the market. So it had about a 20% run, but that was a little bit different because it's a stock and it was an IPO. It is not an ETF that is allowing massive liquidity to come into the market like never before. So it's a little bit different, but if we want some kind of a reference, the Coinbase IPO had about a 20% run up before it had its massive correction. And so maybe that's something to go off. And here we have Lark again saying, Bank of America estimates that $93 million of fresh cash moves the price of Bitcoin by 1%. Galaxy Digital gives a possibly conservative estimate of new cash inflows into Bitcoin thanks to the ETF. $14 billion in year 1, $26.2 billion year 2, and reaching $38.6 billion in year 3. And now we're going to have the approximate price estimates based on that capital inflow. So here we have some quick moon math. Assuming Galaxy is right, 1 billion equals 11% gains. Crazy. I mean, if that's true, and you go back here and you see BlackRock has 2 billion, BlackRock alone has 2 billion lined up, ready to go. I mean, there could be some massive gains coming. So that would mean year 1 would be 158%, which would put Bitcoin at 125,000 by the end of 2024. Year 2 would be 291% increase, which would put Bitcoin at 180,000 in 2025. And year 3 would be a 424% increase, putting Bitcoin at 250,000 in 2026. These kind of gains would be in line with the gains put in by gold once its ETF was launched. Do I believe that this could happen? I don't think it's likely that we see a $250,000 Bitcoin in this cycle. In fact, I think it's most likely we end up somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 before we get the next correction and bear market. However, anything is possible, but those are my targets. That's what I'm set on, and I'm basing my opinions on the charts rather than this kind of math or news or catalysts, because the one thing that has held true over the past previous cycles is that there's always been something that's different. There's always been a reason for this time is different. But I think it's best to base the analysis on the charts because I always say this, it's show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. So I'm going to stick to the more conservative estimate until proven otherwise, but these are definite possibilities and nothing is impossible. It's all about statistics and probabilities when it comes to trading and when it comes to the charts. So here we have Standard Chartered Bank says Bitcoin could see 50 to 100 billion in spot ETF inflows upon approval in 2024. Massive. Bitcoin could soar 344% to 200,000 by the end of the year as ETF approval drives huge inflows, Standard Chartered says. If ETF-related inflows materialize as we expect, we think an end 2025 level closer to USD 200,000 is possible. This assumes that between 437,000 and 1.32 million new Bitcoin will be held in spot US ETFs by the end of 2024. Kendrick wrote, estimating that inflows this year alone could be 50 billion to 100 billion. I mean, there's some massive price predictions out there. And you heard it in my podcast with Tim Draper that Bloomberg came out and said a $500,000 Bitcoin this year. Although it is true that there's going to be unlocking of trillions of dollars of capital over time, I don't know about this kind of influx in such a short amount of time, and nothing goes straight up. So we will see. But let's continue, because what we're most concerned with and what's on everybody's minds is what is happening tomorrow. Will it be a sell the news event, or will it spike up and take off to the moon? How should I be playing this? So let's continue. So here we're having a look at a Bitcoin 30-minute chart. As you can see, we have here Bitcoin broke out of this bull flag or symmetrical triangle, and here are the fib levels. Here's the support at around $45,500, and the measured moves based on these fib levels could be up to 47,000, 48,500, and into the 50,000s. So time will tell, but as of right now, we've broken out of this symmetrical triangle or bull flag, and we are waiting on the news for tomorrow. Another thing we have in play is the Bitcoin 1-week golden cross, which is the first ever golden cross on a 1-week time frame for Bitcoin, which is huge. That is a very bullish sign. It is when the 50 moving average crosses above the 200 moving average, and it hasn't happened in Bitcoin's history yet. Some may say because the cycles are diminishing, there are diminishing returns. So if you look at the history of Bitcoin, we've never been below the 200 simple moving average on the weekly time frame for a sustained period of time. And we did this cycle, which would be in line with the diminishing return theory. So technically that could be why we're getting the first golden cross. Either way, it is very, very bullish and very, very exciting. And we have that cross imminent as well. And here we have another chart that shows you what could be happening with Bitcoin if we get bullish news tomorrow like expected. And I'm going to tell you one thing. So we're currently in phase 2 of the bull run, right? The phase that is before the parabolic phase where Bitcoin is now building new market structure on previous resistance, which is now support. And this is how we've gone every single bull run. So I don't think it's likely that we'll be heading straight into the parabolic phase like some may say. In fact, as soon as we have this run after we get the news tomorrow about the ETF, if it is bullish, if it is an approval, then I don't think Bitcoin is going to go much further than 55,000 and sustain above that number. I think that we could hit a mark in the mid 50s if we are that bullish and hang around there for a while and possibly continue with the run sometime in April or after the halving, post-halving into the spring and summertime. That's just my opinion. So I just want to make sure that you guys get as much information as possible to play this as best you can. And so on this chart here, we have the Bitcoin has broken out of the rising wedge and is now in this kind of parabolic curve. And we are currently retesting this channel. And so these are the price targets breaking out of this rising wedge, which would be all the way up to $53,000. And there are other points of confluence that I want to go over at the end of this episode. I have more charts for you based on why I believe it could hit into the early 50s or mid 50s for several reasons, because I'm always looking for confluence, and I've found a lot of confluence to show that that could be the move. And I think Bitcoin has one more massive move in its tank because it's been on low volatility for a while now, and we're about to have a pretty big breakout. So I want to go over that at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. Here we have the total 3 chart. And as I told you guys before, the total 3 is the entire market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's basically the altcoins. And we went over this in a previous episode right around here. And I said that the total 3 market cap has just broken out of this massive resistance at 422 billion. And we're now at 477 billion. And we're about to retest this level. And after we retest that level and confirm support, we are off to the races, and we have already broken out. So if you're wondering, when is it a good time to buy altcoins? Right now is a great time. Not financial advice, but why wait? What I would do, or what I am doing in this situation, if I am just getting started, for example, is I'm thinking about, okay, I want to get positioned. I don't want to be chasing those green candles. Like Tim Draper says, you don't want to be chasing after something. You want to be prepared. And right now, we've just recently freshly broken out of this, and we've got a lot of room to run in the tank. In fact, I want to go over this. While all eyes are on Bitcoin, if you haven't been allocated to Bitcoin yet, I don't believe that now is a great time to start buying Bitcoin compared to the upside versus other altcoins that would outperform Bitcoin at this point in the cycle. So I'd be looking at things like Ethereum. And I know a lot of people have been fading Ethereum and the gas fees are too high and it's all about Solana. But let me tell you, Ethereum is most definitely not dead, and it is going to have a massive run. In fact, Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only coins, tokens, cryptos that have been declared commodities and that we know the SEC won't be going after. So what's going to be on every institution's mind when they start to apply for the next ETF? What'll it be? It's going to be Ethereum. And they are already applying for these Ethereum ETFs, including ARK Invest and many others who have their sights set on Ethereum. So do not fade Ethereum. I believe Ethereum could hit a $10,000 price point this cycle and even above. So, and as far as altcoins, many of them, a 5X is probably definitely in the cards. Nothing is for sure. But based on their previous all-time highs and whether or not you think they're going to stand the test of time, a lot of altcoins will do a 5x to 10 to even 15x. And of course, there'll be many that will do 50 to 100x. But as far as the ones that will be foundational for your portfolio and stable and a little bit more secure, definitely a 5x in the. And as far as the stock market, it takes about 15 years to do a 5x. Traditional markets, it takes about 15 years. So what is being patient for a few more months or another year compared to 15 years to get the same returns? And for the 10X, it takes 30 years in the traditional market. And you can do that this cycle in the altcoins if you're patient enough to set it and forget it, to not try to chase gains. The money is made in the middle. You don't have to time the market. You just have to have exposure, because these massive moves happen only a few handful of times throughout the year. And if you're not in it, you lose that upside and that exposure to those gains. So for me, I'm getting prepared. I'm looking like I'm playing chess. I'm looking to what's going to be the next thing that moves. What are the institutions going to go to next? Of course, I have exposure to Bitcoin, but this is for people who may not have exposure to altcoins, or maybe wondering, is it time to buy? Is it time to sell? Should I wait? Waiting is risky. And at this point, I think not having exposure is riskier than having exposure. And like I always say, I believe Bitcoin is going to have a massive correction, a 20 to 50% correction, and possibly in February after the Bitcoin ETF hype dies out, or even tomorrow if we get bad news. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but it is best to be prepared. Like Tim says, you don't want to be scrambling when others are scrambling. You want to be prepared and positioned already. So here we have the chart for Ethereum. I just wanted to go over when I started talking about Ethereum on the 200-day to Bitcoin halving countdown. It was right here in the circle here at about 1,700, and Ethereum is now at almost $2,300. So would have been another amazing opportunity. And in my opinion, it still is. It still is. And the Ethereum all-time high was just under $5,000. At the time I was talking about, it was 2.6x down from its all-time high. If things get really crazy, it could even wick up to $15,000 to $20,000 and have a 4 to 5 to 6x gains in Ethereum, which is the second biggest coin in the entire ecosystem. So, and if you watched my episode about ARK Invest Big Ideas, and they discussed their price targets for Ethereum in 2030, 6 Ethereum could be equivalent to $1 million in 10 years. So, sky is the limit here. We're on the verge, the precipice of an incredible opportunity. And if you're wondering if now is a good time or if you're too late, you are most definitely not too late. And now we're going to hear from Cathie Wood on her opinion of whether or not this will be a sell the news event or Bitcoin will take off into the stratosphere. Let's hear what she has to say.
Cathie, so let's assume the SEC approves the application this week or whatever. What kind of impact would a Bitcoin ETF have on Bitcoin? I mean, we all saw this big run up. The minute BlackRock announced they were interested, it was 30,000, and then it went, now it's over 40,000. They can't help but think this is logically in anticipation of a spot Bitcoin ETF. So is this a sell on the news event or not?
I think a lot of people have been saying that it probably will be a sell on the news event, but so many people are saying that now that I'm beginning to have doubts. We are seeing an anticipatory move, but the move of institutions into this new asset class, and that is what we are talking about here, a new asset class, which with another diversifier, institutions can increase their returns per unit of risk because of the low correlations. I think that's going to be very appealing. And if institutions with trillions of dollars under management just put 0.2 or 0.5% in, that could really move the needle. So we think the move has been anticipatory, and it makes sense. It makes sense. There's a scarcity value now evolving. It's becoming a scarce asset at 19.5 million Bitcoin outstanding. It can only go to 21, and 15 million of those 19.5 million are in what we would call strong hands. They haven't moved their Bitcoin in the last 155 days.
There you have it. It wasn't that straightforward what Cathie Woods believes is going to happen, but she's saying that so many people are saying it's going to be a sell the news event, that Bitcoin will go down after the announcement, that she believes that the opposite could happen. I tend to think that happens a lot in crypto. Bitcoin never does what everyone expects it to do. So there's a lot of things in favor of Bitcoin having one more move before a potential correction, or maybe a quick spike down on volatility and then the move. Bitcoin it likes to act in ways that people don't expect. So expect the unexpected, but just brace yourselves, because regardless of whether Bitcoin takes off to the moon tomorrow, if it's approved, or has a massive correction because it's delayed, it's inevitable. So, if it crashes, buy more. And if it goes to the moon, then get prepared, buy altcoins. Not financial advice, but it doesn't matter what happens in the short term. I'm giving you this as a guide for you to be able to build it into your strategy and understand what's going to happen next. But for me, I really don't care what happens tomorrow. I care because it's a monumental moment that will unlock trillions of dollars over time, but my plan is still the same. So back to Anthony Pompliano, here are a couple of his predictions, which I think are really interesting. I wanted to share with you guys.
Second one is that the ETFs will likely receive $2 billion in AUM in the first 48 hours. $2 billion in the first 2 days. To put this in context, there was about $1 billion that came into the BITO, which was the futures-based Bitcoin ETF, and that came in about the first 48 hours. I think that this one is going to be at least 2x that. So $2 billion in the first 2 days is what the inflows are going to look like. That number is surprising a lot of people in traditional finance. This would smash the record for all ETF filings, and it would put a brand new all-time record out there that is unlikely to see another asset that could come along and beat it, but who knows? But $2 billion in the first 48 hours is kind of my base case. So what's going to happen in the first 30 days? In my opinion, that's going to be $5 billion in AUM. $5 billion in AUM. Gold is about $100 billion. So it'd be like 5% of the gold market coming into this ETF in the first 30 days. That would be a very, very hot start. So $2 billion in the first 2 days, $5 billion coming in the first 30 days. Now, outside of
So this is really important, what he's saying. $2 billion in the first 2 days would shatter any previous record of any ETF ever. So Bitcoin is literally about to make history. We're all here for it. And $2 billion would really, truly move the needle, as Kathy said. And it's important because I'm going to tie it into some charts at the end of the episode right now. We're coming up on that now, that show that we've got probably until the end of January to complete this run, which would kind of coincide with Anthony Pompliano's prediction for the $5 billion in the next 30 days. That would put us roughly around the end of January to the first week of February before a potential correction. So I think this is really interesting, and it does tie in and have confluence with the other charts that I'm looking at. So this takes us into our last portion, which is the second part of the chart analysis of Bitcoin that I wanted to go over with you. I actually saw this indicator being used for the first time on Eric Crown Crypto Channel. He's one of my favorite analysts in the space, and he does a lot of charts based on statistics and volatility. And so he uses an indicator called the BBWP, which is a volatility indicator coupled with the stochastic direction being up or down to kind of predict or map out what the probability is of Bitcoin going up or down and how far. So based on the current move, which has the stochastic oscillator pointed in the upward direction, and we've already started this move, we're about 13% up into this move. So basically this past time that we were at very low volatility was not very long. So it's not one of the more massive moves, but it is a pretty big move. And the average days are 19 days for this move to play out. And the average move is at 27%. So if Bitcoin were to move on the lower end of that percentage, the lower end of the standard deviation, 17%, that would put Bitcoin at around $49,000. The average move would put Bitcoin at about $52,000 to $53,000. And up on the higher end, if things get really crazy, like a lot of people are predicting, would put Bitcoin at $57,000. And this move, according to the average days, would play out by the end of January, maybe the first week of February. So 2 to 3.5 weeks, and 17 out of 21 times have been correct that are coupled with the stochastic oscillator direction. So all things aside, I mean, this move is now 13% underway. We're at $46,800, and we could be seeing a $10,000 price increase by the end of the month or even sooner, based on the injections of liquidity from the ETF approval. But this is just more confluence to show that we could hit these price points. And the last point of confluence is here on this chart. As you'll see, we are much further ahead in the cycle already than last cycle. So as you can see here, this was the last halving in May 2020. Right here where Bitcoin was just kind of trading sideways. And it took quite a while before it did one of these moves where it started to go upward quickly. That was about in October, end of October, beginning of November, after the halving. So many months after the halving, we're already well into that move before the halving now. So things are a little bit different this cycle. We're moving much quicker. But another point of confluence, right around $52,000, was where we have some massive resistance here from the last cycle. So as soon as we break this point, we are off to the races. We have broken through the bull run doors, and we can then go on to see our new all-time highs. But I think we could have some resistance and some issues around those points. And if things get really heated, here's the other point of confluence at around $57,000 to $58,000. So there's a lot of confluence in the mid to early 50s, and it's going to be really exciting to see what happens at that point. Now, to wrap this up, what am I doing and how am I playing this? I already have my Bitcoin position allocated. I am going to hold that through the cycle and average out toward the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. I am looking at altcoins. I'm buying Ethereum. I'm buying all of my top altcoins in preparation for this move, because if Bitcoin moves up, even though it's going to be the Bitcoin show and Bitcoin dominance will most likely trend higher, all eyes on Bitcoin, I'm looking to make the next move, which is Ethereum and all the other altcoins that are going to make their move later on in the cycle. So that's how I'm playing this. I'm super excited tomorrow. Again, it's been an honor to be here with you. I'm so happy to be back. Let me know where you've been tuning in from and what you think is going to happen tomorrow. Do you believe it will be approved or not? And what price points do you think we'll be seeing tomorrow and through the end of this month? Let me know. Thanks so much again for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow.